Her arm was clamped earlier in the play.
I mean, look at that.
Like, what can she do there?
She literally can do nothing.
The Indiana Fever just got served the basketball equivalent of a mugging in broad daylight, and the fingerprints are everywhere. Forget the polite excuses about bad calls. This was sabotage wearing a ref's jersey, gift-wrapped in a masterclass of clueless, gutless coaching.
This was an embarrassing performance. How do you lose at home to the Dallas Wings? You lose at home to the Dallas Wings that lost to the gum on the bottom of the shoe, Chicago Sky 3 times. They lost to the Sky 3 times. You lose to the Dallas Wings. Man, stop it, man. Stephanie White is a joke.
The Indiana Fever just endured the basketball equivalent of a daylight robbery, and the fingerprints are everywhere. This wasn't your garden variety, oops, bad officiating night. No, this was sabotage in plain sight, stitched together by refs who couldn't spot a foul if it landed in their lap, and a coaching strategy so inept it deserves its own Netflix crime documentary.
I just watched one of the biggest puke fests I've ever seen in my entire life.
From the opening tip, this game was a sham dressed up as basketball. A parade of double standards so blatant you could smell the bias from the cheap seats. Dallas was allowed to maul, shove, and hack like they were auditioning for a cage fight, while the Fever got whistled for breathing too aggressively. The physicality, off the charts. The officiating, a masterclass in how to torch credibility in under 2 hours. But here's the real plot twist. The refs weren't the only clowns in this circus. Head coach Stephanie White, quick to step in front of microphones and torch the officials for their double standards, somehow forgot to glance in the mirror. Because while she was right about the bias, her own decisions from the bench were nothing short of catastrophic.
1-3 run at home by the opposing team on you, when the opposing team is the Dallas Wings and they're not any good.
And here's the part that keeps Fever fans awake at night. This isn't an isolated meltdown. It's becoming a pattern, a grim little cycle of rigged whistles, clueless sideline decisions, and the same gut punch ending every time. If you honestly think the corrupt refs and Stephanie White teamed up to detonate this game from both ends, just go ahead and drop "we're done" in the comments, because that's how it feels. So what actually went down? The scoreboard says Dallas Wings 81, Indiana Fever 80. But let's not pretend this was some honorable, down-to-the-wire duel. This wasn't basketball lost by a single point. This was a masterclass in how to steal a win without ever playing better basketball. And the real MVPs? Not the players, not the coaches, but the 3 smug, whistle-happy figures in black and white stripes. They didn't just influence the outcome, they owned it.
It's bad enough when you have the referees being so incompetent, so inconsistent, clearly calling things one way for a certain player and calling it another way for another player.
From the opening tip, that whistle wasn't just picky, it was playing favorites like a bad reality TV judge. And the chosen one? Paige Buchers, a walking magnet for superior whistle treatment. She can shove off to carve herself a mile of space and the rest nod like it's fine wine at a tasting. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham so much as exhales in Paige's general direction and boom, foul. But the real crime scene came late in the fourth. Fever's closing the gap, crowds on its feet, momentum swinging hard, and then it happens. Buchers blatantly extends her arm, not a little chicken wing, but a full, straight-arm shove, the kind every basketball rulebook on the planet labels as an offensive foul. Every rulebook except, apparently, the one these refs pulled out of a cereal box. Instead of calling the obvious, they tag Cunningham. That's not just a bad call. That's a momentum heist. One gift-wrapped possession for Dallas, signed "With love, the Stripes," and the Fever's comeback dies on the spot.
You can just see right here, Sophie and Paige. Sophie has her arms out. Sophie doesn't have her arms on Paige, and Paige just shoves her. Paige just shoves her, and it's called as a foul on Sophie. But then this is, in my opinion, one of the most egregious calls I've ever seen in basketball.
These shameless calls didn't just disappear into the box score. They lit a fire under every person in a Fever jersey. Caitlin Clark, normally surgical in her focus, was reduced to sarcastically clapping at a referee like a teacher dealing with the world's dumbest student. Stephanie White? She went full post-game press conference mode, calling out the officiating for its inconsistencies, as if that even begins to cover the scale of the farce. Fans and critics aren't wrong. These whistles didn't just break the Fever's rhythm, they smashed it to pieces. Indiana clawed back from 17 down, ripped off a monstrous 19-3 run, and still lost by 1. And when you watch it back, the reason isn't some mystical basketball gods nonsense. It's obvious. Every time the Fever caught fire, the game got stopped dead in its tracks. Not because Dallas earned it, but because the court wasn't level. It was tilted, and tilted hard, straight toward the Wings bench. And if you think this mess was just about the refs, you're still giving the Fever too much credit. There was another gaping hole in their game that night. One wearing a suit and standing on the sideline. Yes, Stephanie White.
I think she deserves to be a WNBA coach. I think she's a terrible decision maker. She's terrible. She's a negative basketball coach.
Let's start with the final stomach-turning sequence. Fever down 1. Natasha Howard snags the rebound. The clock's bleeding out. This is the moment where any half-awake coach slams a timeout, huddles the team, and scripts the one perfect play to steal the game. But Stephanie White, she just watches. Tick, tick, tick. The season's hanging by a thread, and she's treating the possession like it's preseason garbage time. By the time she finally signals for a timeout, there's 1.7 seconds left. 1.7. At that point, you're not drawing up a game winner, you're writing a prayer and hoping it makes it to the rim. That's not strategy, that's negligence disguised as coaching.
We don't call a timeout at the first case, we don't call a timeout at the second instance, and we don't call a timeout the third time. Instead, we wait until the last possible second to call a timeout.
Then there's the player rotations, or whatever that roulette wheel Stephanie White was spinning counts as. Lexi Hall, who's been one of the few sparks earlier this season, is basically glued to the bench. Meanwhile, players who haven't clicked with the lineup, haven't found rhythm, and clearly aren't ready to shoulder the moment, they're logging heavy minutes like they've earned it. The result? An offense with zero spacing, a defense full of holes, and a team chemistry that felt like they just shook hands in the locker room before tip-off. Adjustments? Forget it. The Wings came out swinging, aggressive, physical, and fully exploiting the chaos in officiating, and the Fever's game plan looked like it had been laminated in the preseason and locked in a vault ever since. In the final quarter, when urgency should have been burning, the offense crawled along like it was stuck in molasses, predictable, stagnant, and easy to defend. Even the timeouts were a disaster. Dallas would light a run, momentum snowballing, and instead of stopping the avalanche, White just stood there until the scoreboard was bleeding. By the time she finally called for a timeout, the damage was carved in stone. And this isn't some one-off bad night. It's a pattern. When stars aren't clicking or are out, White's system collapses like a cheap tent. Caitlin Clark's been sidelined for nearly 20 games of the season. 20! And instead of reshaping the offense around who's actually available, she tries to cram everyone into the same rigid, ill-fitting framework. That's not strategy. That's stubbornness. And in close games, it's fatal. But this game? Losing to the Dallas Wings, a team that had dropped 5 straight, a team struggling against everyone, and letting them walk right over you? That's not just a loss. That's an alarm bell so loud it should shake the Fever front office out of its chair.
The opposing team is the Dallas Wings, and they're not any good. I mean, seriously, what just happened during this game?
Let's zoom out, because this mess isn't just about one game. It's a snapshot of a league hobbling along on 2 busted wheels. On one side, you've got the officiating, blind, inconsistent, and so blatantly selective it's become part of the pregame scouting report. On the other, you've got coaches who freeze in real time while the season burns down around them. August 12th, just the latest exhibit in a case file that's already a mile thick. The refs, this isn't some unlucky night. It's a season-long epidemic. One play, a defender gets mugged and the whistle's silent. Next play, the faintest brush of fingertips sends someone to the line. And when it happens in marquee matchups, especially with stars like Caitlin Clark in the spotlight, it's not just bad optics, it's poison. Miscalls, phantom fouls, flagrant contact that exists only in theory, it's turning games into coin flips decided by who the whistle likes better. And then there's Stephanie White. Late timeouts, baffling rotations, and a visible inability to pull the trigger when an opponent is clearly eating her team alive. This isn't just a failure of X's and O's, it's an absence of fight. A coach's job is to stop the bleeding. Too often, White just stands there and lets the wound gush. Put those two disasters together, and you've built the perfect machine for killing fan loyalty. The league is out here chasing growth, cashing in on a $2.2 billion media deal, hyping up its stars. But what's the point if fans start believing the outcomes are shaped more by refs' whims or coaching blunders than by the players' talent? Fans want to believe the court is level. They want to trust that if their team plays better, they win. Right now, that trust is cracking like thin ice. And if the WNBA doesn't fix its officiating crisis and push coaches like White to step up, they're not just going to lose games, they're going to lose the momentum they've fought years to build.
She plays puke ball. I think she plays slow. I think she plays boring basketball. I think she often gives players too much of a leash when she shouldn't. Gives players she should give a leash, more of a leash to. None of it. She doesn't seem to believe in the hot hand. In fact, she seems to do the opposite of the hot hand, where if a player makes a couple of shots, she pulls them.
The future of the Fever under Stephanie White? If August 12th is any indication, it's a storm cloud on the horizon. After the game, White had plenty to say about the refs, the double standards, the calls that gift-wrapped momentum for Dallas. And yeah, some of it was valid. But here's the problem. She didn't say a single word about herself. Not one syllable about the late timeout that killed the final possession. No admission about the rotation roulette that left her best spark plugs collecting splinters. Not even a whisper about the glacial in-game adjustments. This is a pattern with White. She's mastered the art of pointing the finger outward while ignoring the one pointed back of her. And that makes every loss burn twice as deep. Because if the head coach won't even acknowledge her own role in a meltdown, how in the hell is the team supposed to fix it? Indiana's roster is no joke. Boston, Mitchell, and when she's healthy, Clark. The kind of talent that should be stacking playoff runs, not piling up excuses. But leadership sets the tone. And when accountability stops at the locker room door, the culture rots from "we'll fix it" to "it's someone else's fault." That's how promising seasons quietly bleed out. White's brand of basketball? Slow, predictable, and boring. She hands players too much leash when they're hurting the team, then yanks it away from players who actually have the hot hand. It's backwards. A player catches fire, nails a couple shots, and instead of riding that momentum, White yanks them like she's allergic to success. With Clark out for weeks, Indiana can't afford this luxury of self-sabotage. Every game matters, every mistake counts, and every decision from the bench has the power to swing the future in one direction or the other. But if White keeps treating her own missteps like invisible ink, that future will keep getting cloudier. Not because the Fever lack talent, but because the person steering the ship is too busy blaming the waves to notice she's off course. So here's the reality. Either Indiana faces the consequences of letting this slide, or they face the harder truth. It might be time to change the coach. This Wings game didn't just reveal bad officiating. It didn't just expose White's inefficiencies. It ripped the curtain back on deeper, systemic problems inside this team. The WNBA now has a choice. Fix this mess, or watch the credibility they've worked years to build slip right through their fingers.